And Pranav after Vyasadeva? Who is the next after Vyasadeva? You should be able to answer immediately.
Yes, there is about it. Is it Sukdev Goswami?
No. How can it be Sukadeva Goswami? Who is the next in Guru's Parampara? Priyanka?
Madhvacharya.
Madhvacharya. This is our Brahma, Madhva, Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. It's Madhvacharya. And from Madhvacharya then to Lakshmipati Tirtha, and then to Sripad Madhavendra Puri, then to Ishwar Puri, then to Lord Chaitanya, and then the succession flows. The Shad Goswamis, the Acharyas. So this is the Chatar Shloki which is being further expanded. Who? By Brahmaji to Naradji. So these are the concluding verses that we are hearing. The great sage Narad also inquired in detail from his father Brahma, the great grandfather of all the universe, after seeing him well satisfied. The process of understanding spiritual or transcendental knowledge from the realized person is not exactly like asking an ordinary question from a schoolmaster. The schoolmasters in the modern days are paid agents. Did we discuss this word? I don't think we discussed. Did we discuss this? 43 onwards. Okay. Till 42nd we have discussed. Okay, Narad was very much pleased. Narad was very much pleased his father and desired to know all about the energies of Vishnu. The master of all energies for Narad was the greatest of all sages and greatest of all devotees, O king. So Narad, he pleased his father by his pertinent question. What was the question? He wanted to know about the energies of Lord Vishnu, who is the master of all energies. Why? Because Narad was the... So, unless and until one has a relevant inquiry, how can he become the receiver of knowledge? So, Narad was the greatest of all sage and the greatest of all devotees. And he had such transcendental inquiries. Tushtam nisamya pitaram lokanam paripitamaham devarshi paripricha bhavanyan manu prichati. Twice the word pricha and prichati is coming. Pricha and pariprichati means inquisitiveness, inquiry, the desire to know. Who has the desire to know? Devarishi paripricha, Narad Muni. And whom is he asking? Lokanam paripitamaha. Who is paripitamaha? Brahma. The great sage Narad also inquired in detail from his father Brahma, the great grandfather of all universe, after seeing him well satisfied. The process of understanding spiritual or transcendental knowledge from the realized person is not exactly like asking an ordinary question from the schoolmaster. The schoolmaster in the modern days are paid agents for giving some information. But the spiritual master is not a paid agent, nor can he impart instructions without being authorized. In the Bhagavad Gita 4.34, the process of understanding transcendental knowledge is directed as follows. Tadvidhi paripatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. Arjuna was advised to receive transcendental knowledge from the realized person by surrender. that is paripath. Question is pariprashnena. And service, this is sevaya. Receiving transcendental knowledge is not like exchanging dollars. Such knowledge has to be received by service to spiritual master. As Brahmaji received the knowledge directly from the Lord by satisfying him fully by his tapasya, similarly one has to receive the transcendental knowledge from the spiritual master by satisfying him. The spiritual master's satisfaction is the means of assimilating transcendental knowledge. One cannot understand transcendental knowledge simply by becoming a grammarian. Prabhupada says, find out what is grammarian. Just check this word. One cannot understand transcendental knowledge simply by becoming a grammarian. The Vedas declares, Shveta Upanishad 6.23, Yasya deve para bhaktir, yatha deve tatha guru, tasyeta kathita hi artha, prakashante mahatmana. Only unto one who has unflinching devotion to the Lord and to the spiritual master does transcendental knowledge become automatically revealed. Such a relationship between the disciple and the spiritual master is eternal. One who is now a disciple is the next spiritual master. This is very important principle. Very, very important principle. One who has actually become a bona fide disciple is certain to become a bona fide spiritual master. The next spiritual master. If one fails to become a disciple, then there is no possibility for him for any progress in the spiritual affairs. Once Srila Prabhupada was asked this question. Srila Prabhupada asked this question actually to all his followers and disciples that what is the foremost quality of a spiritual master? What is the foremost quality of a spiritual master? So many answers were given. Every disciple tried that he must be well versed in scriptures. He should be a Goswami. He should have perfect sense control. He should be free from attachment and aversions. So many, transcendental qualities and attributes were mentioned. And Prabhupada rejected all of them. And then finally Prabhupada said, the foremost quality of a spiritual master is that he is a bona fide disciple of his spiritual master. If one is a bona fide disciple of his spiritual master, Prabhupada is writing, he is the next spiritual master. Not otherwise. One becomes a spiritual master only on the strength of the blessing of the spiritual master who has been appointed by his spiritual master. You can see the screen. One who is now a disciple is the next spiritual master, and one cannot be a bona fide and authorized spiritual master unless, point comes, one has been strictly obedient to his spiritual master. Brahmaji, as a disciple of the Supreme Lord, received the real knowledge and imparted it to his dear disciple Narad, and similarly Narad, as spiritual master, handed over this knowledge to Vyasa, and so on. Therefore, the so-called former spiritual master and disciple are not facsimiles of Brahma and Narad, or Narad and Vyasa. The relationship between Brahma and Narad is reality, while the so-called formality is the relationship between the cheater and cheated. It is clearly mentioned herewith that Narad is not only well behaved, meek and obedient, but also self-controlled. One who is not self-controlled, especially in sex life, can become neither a disciple nor a spiritual master. One must have disciplinary training in controlling, speaking, anger, the tongue, the mind, the belly, and the genitals. What is the verse? Very famous verse. One must have disciplinary training in controlling, speaking, anger, tongue, mind, belly, and the genitals. What is the verse? Which speaks about the person who has control on all these senses. You know the verse, Purushottam? Very famous verse. बोलिए जिसको भी पता है, please speak. Please recite the verse. No one knows.
योगी बादशाह बेगम मनुषा
Yes.
क्रोध बेगम
Yes.
आगे और नहीं है
क्यों? बाकी आगे करना नहीं, इतना भी हो जाए तो बहुत है. जीवा बेगम, उदरपस्त बेगम. The first urge that we have to control is vacho begam, the urge to speak. Have you heard? If speech is silver, then silence is gold. Vacho begam. Then manasa krodha begam. Even difficult to control the urge to speak is the control of anger. Anger which arises from the mind. Manasa krodha begam. Then jiva begam. The urges of the tongue. Udar apasta begam. Udar of the belly. The urges of the belly. And upast is the urges of the genitals. Etan vegan yo vishahet dhira. So one who is able to control all these 6 urges. The urges of the speech, the actions of mind, and anger. 3. Of the tongue, belly, and the genitals. These 6 forces. Etan vegan yo vishahet dhira. Such a person is dhira, he is a sober person. Sarvam api mam prithvim sasishye, and is qualified to accept disciples all over the world. Who has this qualification? Who can control these 6 urges? Narad is not only well behaved, meek, and obedient, but also self controlled. One who is not self controlled, specifically in sex life, can become neither a disciple nor a spiritual master. One must have disciplinary training in controlling speaking, anger, the tongue, the mind, the belly, and the genitals. One who has controlled the particular senses mentioned above is called a Goswami. Without becoming a Goswami, one can become neither a disciple nor a spiritual master. Prabhupada is emphasizing this so many times. That unless and until one becomes a disciple, there is no question of him being a spiritual master. So the first and the foremost thing, if anyone claims to be a spiritual person or a spiritual authority, what is the first thing that he should be able to reveal? That whose disciple he is, whom he has been following. The so-called spiritual master without sense control is certainly the cheater, and the disciple of such a so-called spiritual master is the cheated. This world, Prabhupada said, is filled with cheater and the cheated. One should not think of Brahmaji as a dead great-grandfather. As we have experienced on this planet, he is the oldest great-grandfather and he is still living. And Narad is also living. The age of the inhabitants of the Brahmalok planet is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. The inhabitants of this small planet Earth can hardly calculate even the duration of one day of Brahma. Who remembers what is the duration of one day of Brahma? It is there mentioned in the 4th chapter. Who remembers? What is the duration of one day of Brahma ji? क्या बात है भाई, सब भूल भाल गए क्या? What is the calculation? Yes, Priyanka and Ravindra Prabhu.
100 cycle of 4 Chaturvega.
Okay, very smart answer, but that is not the accurate answer. It is
42
mentioned in
trillion.
4.1. 4.1. Prabhupada is giving the calculation. What is the duration? Find out. In the 4th chapter, Prabhupada is mentioning. Next verse. Tasmaidam Bhagavatam Puranam Dasalakshanam Proktam Bhagavata Praha Prita Putray Bhutakrit. Glory of Srimad Bhagavatam. Thereupon the supplementary Vedic literature Srimad Bhagavatam, which was described by the personality of Godhead and which contains 10 characteristics, was told with satisfaction by the father Brahma to his son Narad. This is the history of how Srimad Bhagavatam descends. Although the Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken in 4 verses, it has 10 characteristics, which will be explained in the next chapter. In the 4 verses, it is first said that the Lord estimated before the creation, and thus the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam includes the Vedanta aphorism Janmadiyasya 1.1.1. Janmadiyasya is the beginning, yet the 4 verses in which it is said that the Lord is the root of everything, that be beginning from the creation up to the Supreme Lord, up to the Supreme Abode of the Lord, naturally explain the 10 characteristics. So the 10 subject matters or the characteristics of Bhagavatam will be discussed now. One should not misunderstand by wrong interpretations that the Lord spoke only 4 verses, and that therefore all the rest of the 17,996 verses are useless. The 10 characteristics, as will be explained in the next chapter, require so many verses just to explain them properly. Brahmaji has also advised Narad previously that he should expand the ideas he heard from Brahmaji. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed to Srila Rupa Goswami in a nutshell. But the disciple, Srila Rupa Goswami, expanded this very elaborately, and the same subject was further expanded by Srila Jiva Goswami and even further by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. We are just trying to follow in the footsteps of all these authorities. So Srimad Bhagavatam is not like ordinary fiction or mundane literature. It is unlimited in strength, and however one may expand in according to one's own ability. Bhagavatam still cannot be misled. Bhagavatam still cannot be finished by such expansions. Srimad Bhagavatam, being the sound representation of the Lord, is simultaneously explained in 4 verses and in 4 billion verses all over the world. Sorry. Srimad Bhagavatam, being the sound representation of the Lord, is simultaneously explained in 4 verses and in 4 billion verses, all the same. Inasmuch as the Lord is smaller than the atom and bigger than the unlimited sky, such is the potency of Srimad Bhagavatam. So these verses are speaking about the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam and how Narad Muni received Srimad Bhagavatam. Narada Prahamunye Sarvatyas Sarasvatyas Tate Nipa Dhyayate Brahma Paramam. Vyasayamita Tejase. In succession of king, the great sage Narad instructed Srimad Bhagavatam unto the unlimitedly powerful Vyasadeva, who meditated in devotional service upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, on the bank of river Saraswati. In the first 5 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th chapter, verse 8, Narad instructed the great sage Vyasadeva as follows. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th chapter, he said in the 5th chapter, Narad Muni instructs Vyasadeva. Atho Mahabhaga Bhavan Amogadre Suchi Shrava Satyarato Dhrita Vrata Urukramasya Khila Bandha Muktaye Samadhina Anusmara Yad Vicheshtitam. O greatly fortunate pious philosopher, your name and fame are universal, and you are fixed in the absolute truth with spotless character and infallible vision. I ask you to meditate upon the activities of the personality of Godhead, whose activities are unparalleled. So, in the reciprocal succession of the Brahma Sampradaya, the practice of yoga meditation is not neglected. But because the devotees are bhakti yogis, they do not undertake the trouble to meditate upon the impersonal Brahman as indicated there. They meditate on Brahma Paramam, or the Supreme. I'm reading again. So, in the reciprocal succession of the Brahma Sampradaya, the practice of yoga meditation is not neglected. But because the devotees are bhakti yogis, they do not undertake the trouble to meditate upon the impersonal Brahman, as indicated here. They meditate on Brahma Paramam, or the Supreme Brahman. Brahman realization begins from the impersonal effulgence. But by further progress of such meditation, manifestations of the Supreme Soul, Paramatma realizations takes place. And progressing further, realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is fixed. About whom it is being said? Who is being discussed here in this section? Bolliye? What we read, they meditate on Brahma Paramam or the Supreme Brahman. Brahman realization becomes from impersonal effulgence. And by further progress of such meditation, manifestation of the Supreme Soul, Paramatma realization take place. And progressing further, realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is fixed. Shri Narad Muni, as the spiritual master of Vyasadeva, knew very well the position of Vyasadeva. And Shri Narad Muni, as the spiritual master of Vyasadeva, knew very well the position of Vyasadeva, and thus he certified the qualities of Srila Vyasadeva as fixed in the absolute truth with great vow, etc. Narad advised meditation upon the transcendental activities of the Lord. Impersonal Brahman has no activities, but the personality of Godhead has many activities, and all such activities are transcendentals, without any tinge of material quality. In the activities of the Supreme Brahman were material activities, then Narad would not have advised Vyasadeva to meditate upon them. And the Param Brahma is Lord Sri Krishna, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita in the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. When Arjuna realized the factual position of Lord Krishna, he addressed Lord Krishna in the following words: Param Brahma, Param Dhama, Pavitram Paramam Bhavam, Purusham Shashvatam Devyam, Adidevam Majam Vibhum, Ahusmam Rishya Sarve, Devrishi Naradasthatha, Asito Devalo Vyasa, Swayam Cheva Bhavishime. Arjuna summarized the purpose of Bhagavad Gita by his realization of Lord Sri Krishna and thus said, My dear personality of Godhead, you are the supreme absolute truth, Param Brahma, the original person in the eternal form of bliss and knowledge. And this is confirmed by Narad, Asita, Devala, and Vyasadeva. And above all, you yourself have also personally confirmed it. Bhagavad Gita, 10th chapter, 12th and 13th verse. When Vyasadeva fixed his mind in meditation, he did it in Bhakti Yoga, trance, and actually saw the Supreme Person with Maya, the illusionary energy, in contraposition. As we have discussed, between the Lord's Maya or illusion is also a representation, because Maya has no existence without the Lord. Darkness is not independent of light. This is the philosophy. The other day also I discussed. So Maya is what? It is Chaya, shadow. And what is the source of shadow? That is also sun. कृष्ण है सूर्य सम, माया है अंधकार. जहां कृष्ण तहां नहीं माया राधिका. Darkness is not independent of light. Without light, no one can experience the contraposition of darkness. However, this Maya or illusion cannot overcome the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but stands apart from him, Upashraya. Therefore, perfection of meditation is realization of the Personality of Godhead along with his transcendental activities. Very important. This is conclusion. Perfection of meditation is realization of the Personality of Godhead along with his transcendental activities. Meditation on the impersonal Brahman is troublesome. Business for the meditator, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Klesho Adhikaras Tesham Avyak Asakt Chetasam. And the final verse of this chapter. Yadutaham Tvaya Prishto Vairajat Purushaditam यथासि तद उपक्यस्ते प्रश्नन् अन्यंश्च कृत्स्नः कृत्स्नः. O king. So now who is speaking? When it comes O king, that means Sukdev Goswami. Your question as to how the universe became manifested from the gigantic form of personality of Godhead, as well as other questions, I shall answer in detail by explanation to the four verses already mentioned. So the dialogue between Narad Muni and Vyasadeva is over, or the dialogue between Narad Muni and Brahmaji. As stated in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, this great transcendental literature is the ripened fruit of all trees of Vedic knowledge. Who remembers the verse? Full verse? Quickly. Ramya. Huh? She has the confidence. बाकी सब सोच रहे हैं दूसरे को बोलने दो. Only two. Huh? Both the Matajis, Ramya and Priyanka. What about you, Pranav? You remember this verse? Recite.
No, Prabhuji cannot remind.
Why? Why it is not being remembered? Purushottam, bolo.
याद नहीं है प्रभु।
याद नहीं. रियांशी से बोलो. रियांशी will recite. Yes, Riyanshi. Please recite this verse.
प्रभुजी
Hare Hare Krishna.
निगमकल्पतरुगलितं फलं सुखमुखादमृततव संयुतं पिबत भागवत रसमालयं मुहुरः रसिका भुवि भावुकः.
Excellent. Excellent. बच्चों को क्या संस्कार देंगे? कैसे देंगे? वो हमारी बात कैसे सुनेंगे? हाँ? इतना ठूस ठूस के याद कराया था और रिसाइट नहीं करते हैं. अरे जब नहा रहे हैं, जब ब्रश कर रहे हैं, जब खा रहे हैं, तो इसको सबको रिवाइज करिए, रिसाइट करिए. क्यों अलाउ करते हैं माइंड को इस इल्यूशनरी एनर्जी का कंटेम्पलेशन करने के लिए? उस कंटेम्पलेशन को कैसे कट कर सकते हैं? बाय रिसाइटिंग दिस वर्सेस. So as stated in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, this great transcendental literature is the ripened fruit of the tree of Vedic knowledge, and therefore all questions that can be humanly possible regarding the universal affairs, beginning from its creation, are all answered in Srimad Bhagavatam. So all possible human questions of the human mind and intelligence are answered in Srimad Bhagavatam. The answer depends only on the qualification of the person who explains them. The 10 divisions of Srimad Bhagavatam, as explained by the great speaker Srila Sukadeva Goswami, are the limitations to all questions. An intelligent person who derive all intellectual benefits from them by proper utilization. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to the second canto, 9th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Answers by Citing the Lord's Version. Om Tat Sat. So in this important chapter, we saw how Brahmaji, what is the criteria for becoming qualified in the spiritual affairs, that is discussed here. And then very important, the Lord himself speaking the Chaturshloki Bhagavatam. And that Chaturshloki Bhagavatam, which was received by Brahmaji, is being further explained to Narad. Hare Krishna. I will end here. Any discussions, question, doubt? Please contribute. Was 2.8 chapter presented? Who presented 2.8? पुरुषोत्तम, आपने एक बार भी भागवतम का कोई सेशन एक्सप्लेन किया नहीं किया? प्रेजेंट किया?
यस वो किया था।
कौन सा?
2.8 ही किया था।
जो मॉडरेट आप कर चुके हैं? मुझे नहीं लग रहा 2.8 हुआ।
7 था अप्रोक्स।
हाँ,
36 2.6।
क्या बात है। एक ही चैप्टर प्रेजेंट किया है, उसमें भी इतना कंफ्यूजन है। 2.7 किसने प्रेजेंट किया था? Who presented 2.7? नहीं हुआ, it has not been presented. It's a big one, scheduled incarnations. Tell me, anyone remembers presenting 2.7? Yes, no? I think 2.7 has not been presented. क्या बोल रही हैं आप?
नहीं हुआ था प्रभु जी, 2.6 तक ही हुआ है।
7, 8 और 9 तीन प्रेजेंटेशन बनती है। Pranav, which was the last chapter you presented?
It is in last canto, not. I did not present in second canto.
So you should present now. Which one you would present? 7, 8 or 9? Which one?
9 Prabhuji.
Okay. So 9 goes to you. Purushottam? 2.8. ठीक है? 2.8 is questions by Parikshit Maharaj. And 2.7, Pradeep Prabhu? You are hearing, Pradeep? Very weak, yes. Huh? Don't want to present. Prepare and present. When you can present 2.7? Today is Tuesday. Friday is sufficient. Or says Friday, yeah. Tomorrow is Ekadashi. Then we have first, second. बोलिए, please reply. When it is possible for you to present 2.7?
संडे को।
Okay. Sunday you will present. And Purushottam, आपका 2.8 है? हरि बोल पुरुषोत्तम।
यस वो।
तो आप मंडे। And Pranav,
यस वो जी।
you will present on Tuesday 2.9. Okay, you have almost 1 week. And before that, you will see 2 presentations. Don't go in for explaining every verse. That is not required. You just progress as per the theme is progressing. And focus on the few key verses. Okay, need not that if there are 40 verses, you will speak on all 40 verses. Not required. Okay, we'll end here. The desire was to end the entire chapter, but one chapter is left. Very beautiful. Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. What the Chatushloki has been received by Narad Muni from Brahmaji, it will be further expanded. Hare Krishna. I don't see any genuine question coming, so we'll close. Tomorrow is Ekadashi. Okay, so you tune in from 8, Pradeep, and start chanting. And I will try to join if I get time. Tomorrow and day after will be extremely tight for me, but I will try. And all of you try to complete at least 25 to 30 rounds in the morning itself. If you chant with a little bit of effort in the morning, it is easy. Later in the day, it becomes very difficult. श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, निताई गौर प्रेमानंदी।